Hey, what's up, guys? I thought it would be cool to discuss Elon Musk becoming the world's first trillionaire because I believe that's good for society. But there's a lot of people in Congress in the United States that disagree with me, and I thought it'd be cool to highlight some of those disagreements.
Elon Musk is officially the world's first trillionaire. Think about that. We're living in a time when more and more people are just hanging on by their fingernails to survive in this economy. And Elon Musk has more money and more wealth than anyone in human history.
And here's what Elizabeth Warren recently said about Jeff Bezos, has 222 billion. If he paid my wealth tax this year, we could fund insulin in America for everyone who needs it, plus free school lunch for every kid in Texas, and have plenty of money left over. And Bezos would still have $215 billion to spare. So it's hard to see post and hear rhetoric like that because Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, they had visions and they started businesses. Amazon has employed roughly 11.5 million workers years globally, paid 47.7 billion in disclosed cash income taxes since 2002, and its US workforce has likely generated another roughly 35 to 45 billion in federal income and payroll taxes. So it's like Amazon, Elon with Tesla, they're taking risks and starting these businesses from nothing. And you want to implement a wealth tax and take that money from them to distribute it to other people. And here's a recent video from Jeff Bezos where he discussed why AOC said no one should have that kind of money, which I believe was roughly $1 billion.
Let me ask you about the anger, because there seems to be anger, at least from certain political sides of this. And AOC recently said in a podcast, I'm just curious how you think about this, says there's a certain level of wealth and accumulation that is unearned, she says. You can't earn $1 billion. Just can't earn that, she says. You can get market power, you can break rules, you can abuse labor laws, you can pay people less than what they're worth, but you can't earn that.
Yeah.
By the way, you've earned an extraordinary amount of money. You employ largest employer, if not one of them, in the whole country. When you read that, what do you think?
Well, it's not correct on its face. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say you start a burger joint and you have 10 employees, and you make a little bit of money.
Right.
So you have this one outlet. And by the way, these are the most delicious burgers in the world. People love your burgers, Andrew. And so then you open a second outlet.
Right.
And now you're making a little bit more money, and you have 20 employees, and you open a third outlet. By the time you've opened 1,000 outlets, you are a billionaire.
Right.
And by the way, this is a real life story. It happens all the time. It's In-N-Out Burger. It's Raising Cane's chicken. At what point did that money all of a sudden become unethical? Or it didn't. There was one outlet, and then there were two, and then there were three. What you're doing, the way you make $1 billion or $100 million or $10 million or anything, is you create a service that people love. And if millions of people choose your service, you're going to end up with $1 billion.
Right.
And you can just try it with a chicken franchise.
Do you think, though?
But your chicken has to be good.
But let me ask you.
That's what's hard about hearing stuff like the rhetoric from AOC, the rhetoric from Elizabeth Warren. If someone is creating value for others and people are willing to pay for that service, then this person that created this company, they're providing value to society. I don't have to use Amazon.com to purchase anything, but Amazon is making my life easier and it's better, faster, and cheaper than any other company that's doing the same thing, similar to Walmart. So if someone makes money, that's not a bad thing. But to implement these wealth taxes and take someone else's money that they've earned and distribute it to other people freely, that's the wrong way to go. And that's what causes socialism. So it's easy to say things like that for Elizabeth Warren, but look at the national debt here. $39 trillion. And it's continuing to go up every year. And because we have a government that has the ability to print money out of thin air, it's better for them to steer us towards other people who are the problem, but no one is looking at the government and its spending and its inability to cut the deficit because they have to perpetuate this debt system that they're running on. And there was a video recently from David Freeberg on the All In podcast that highlights this. When you build a system on a house of cards and are able to create money out of thin air, then at a certain point, that takes away everything that society is working for, and society starts to eat itself. And take a look at this video here from David Freeberg that I thought was interesting.
Kamala Harris is going to look like a conservative candidate pretty soon. A lot of people don't quite recognize and see how important the debt and the deficit is with respect to how it's ultimately going to lead to socialism, as it has every single time in history when you've had a free voting democracy. People call it left, but it's actually quite different than just being more traditionally left. It's really a revolution against the system that brought them to this moment. Because the promise that we gave in America, the American dream, was if you will go to college, you will graduate, you will have income, you will have stability, you will be able to buy a home. And what we did is we increased the government's role in making that dream possible. And in doing so, we created effectively a system where we gave unrestricted access to capital, which inflated the cost of education. People could go to school like Zoran and major in African studies and graduate with $200,000, $300,000 of debt and then never get a job. The guy has not had a real job. And this is the truth for 32 million young Americans. They find themselves living in places where they cannot afford to pay their bills every month, and they will never get out of the debt cycle that they were thrust into and believe that they were going to be able to graduate from and excel in the world and increase. They all have what is called negative capital. They have debt, and they will never be able to get out of that cycle. So where do you turn in that moment? You don't go turn to corporations to solve your problems. You don't go turn to your friends and your siblings and your family. They're not going to bail you out. You turn to the voting booth, and you hear a guy like Zoran show up and say there can be a better path forward. The better path forward is the government can and should do more to help. And in doing more to help, we will increase government. We will tax the rich. We will tax the corporations. We will take all of that capital, and we will redistribute it in the form of services and checks and support for all of the people that find themselves unable to take care of themselves. And this becomes a tipping point when the majority of the voter base ends up in that situation where they're that deeply in need, where they have negative capital. And that is the situation America finds itself in today. There is no easy answer and there is no easy solution out of this. But I can tell you one thing for sure, that in historical perspective, we have seen it time and time again across dozens of countries that have embraced socialism to get out of the debt cycle that ultimately absorbs and swallows up the young. It swallows up every family. It swallows up every person in the working class with debt. They're swaddled with it, and they all try and get out of it by increasing government and embracing these socialist concepts, and it has never, ever worked. More government is not the answer. Less government is. Zoran won 61-39 with college educated. Young people voted for him. Old people did not as much. White people voted for him because they went to college. Non-white people did not as much. At the end of the day, young, college-educated white people elected this guy. And that is the beginning of a wave that will sweep over America, and I really do worry about where this takes us.
It's scary because socialism, I feel, is not the way. Increasing the nanny state, increasing government spending is literally led to nothing good. And it created $39 trillion in debt. And it's easy to look at this number and not really put it in perspective, but the government is printing currency every year, diluting your purchasing power. So no matter what you do, no matter how far you get ahead, you need to work harder for less. So if the average salary in New York was 100K 15 years ago or 10 years ago, the salary you'll need to get by is 200K and then 300K and so on. Just like a burger cost 50 or $5 or $2 in 1970, and now that same burger now costs $9. The burger didn't get more valuable, is that the money supply grew so much that the purchasing power of that same money buys you less of the food. And it's really unfortunate that we seem to be headed toward a path of socialism. And I love what Thomas Sowell says here in this video, explains why the government getting involved in everything, it doesn't make things better.
You know, that for the first 150 years of this country, the federal government did not intervene when the economy turned down. And all that time, the downturns all corrected themselves. One of the most classic examples was on the Warren G. Harding. When his first year in office, he found the unemployment rate at 11.7%. He did absolutely nothing. And he did not spend more government money. He cut back government spending. The Federal Reserve had the interest rates up at 6 or 7%, not down at 1% where they are now. The next year, unemployment was at 6.7%. The year after that, it was 2.4%. So the economy has recuperative powers. I mean, employers have an incentive to hire people. Workers have an incentive to get jobs. Lenders have incentives to lend.
Is it your
They
argument?
don't need somebody in Washington trying to micromanage all of this. Anyone who studies
And I
history
com-
knows it.
and I completely agree with that. We need less government spending, not more. We need to let the free market dictate how society goes because at the end of the day, if I create a service that provides things to you better, faster, cheaper, you're more than likely to want to pay for that service. And if that service makes me a millionaire, a billionaire, or a trillionaire, then I'm hiring people to continue to facilitate that service so that you would continue paying me, which creates a positive feedback loop because you're benefiting, your life is getting easier, and I'm also gaining more wealth. But that wealth should not be equally distributed, as in, because I'm getting wealthy by providing a service, you take away my wealth via a wealth tax and just give it to people for free. Now, it's easy to forget that Elon Musk is creating jobs and creating millionaires. Look at this post. Elon just created 4,400 millionaires in a single day. Four of them are now worth over $100 million. Juan Hernandez immigrated from Mexico and took a 28 an hour contractor welding job in 2015. He says he didn't even know what SpaceX was. The company gave him $10,000 worth of equity grant and let him buy more shares through payroll deductions. That stake is now worth $880,000. You know, we should be celebrating these things. We should be celebrating people reaching for the stars. And I like what DHH says in this post. May Europe one day wake up and start striving for this level of capitalistic home run. Dump the degrowth nonsense, celebrate progress, and once again reach for the stars. You know, so there's no guarantee that any of this will happen in terms of gaining wealth. You need to reach for the stars. You need to like take the risk, take the most calculated risk that you can because none of this is guaranteed for nobody. We should be celebrating people that have gained wealth because again, they've created something and are contributing to society in a way that should impact us positively. What people need to remember is that it's not these entrepreneurs that are the problem. It's the government spending and the national debt. And the government is happy to paint someone like Elon Musk as the villain so that you're not paying attention to the fact that there's $39 trillion in debt. There's a Federal Reserve that has the ability to create money out of thin air. And when you create money out of thin air, you give it to the friends and they buy stocks, they buy houses, they buy all of these assets, and none of them hold actual money in their checking account or their savings account because the dollars get diluted every second of every hour of every day. So I believe with this post, here's to the trillionaire class. Let's make more of them because if someone is worth $1 trillion, $1 million, or $1 billion, they are contributing more to society than they're taking from society, if that makes sense. If I'm worth $100,000, if I'm worth 500, if I'm worth 5 million, then there's something about what I'm doing that's positively impacting society and or my coworkers, my relationships, the people that I work for when I'm making these movies. If I have a negative net worth, then I'm taking more from society than I'm giving. So in the world that we live in today, socialism is increasing. Taking money from wealthy people is increasing. People are killing people. It's just unfortunate, and I believe we shouldn't celebrate socialism. We should celebrate capitalism in in a society where the federal government isn't constantly printing dollars, diluting the currency that you hold in your bank account. So please definitely consider this perspective. If you believe in a wealth tax, if you believe no one should be worth $1 million or $1 billion or $1 trillion, just think about the implications of where this goes if society just believes that we can just take from people, and which I feel is not the right thing to do. So with that said, If you're new here, my name is KaMeek. I make movies for a living, and this channel is where I want to try to discuss AI, Bitcoin, and the bigger systems affecting our time, money, and our freedom. So I hope you've enjoyed that video. Definitely like and subscribe, and keep asking questions, keep stacking sats, and I will catch you on the next one.